G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Late afternoon, and here I am listening to the news, and I thought I might disseminate a bit of news, bearing in mind that, to disseminate means to spread the seed, so it's basically essentially a sexual metaphor. But the news I want to spread is, Kirk, I've unsubbed from your channel. Derived Energy, for whatever your reasons are, you can't fucking be bothered putting up a movie that I can read on a mobile phone, and you lack the sufficient intestinal fortitude to speak on YouTube. Therefore, thus and because, I've only been subbed to you so that I could sort of keep track of the fact that you weren't re-incarcerated. And I've come to the conclusion that you're pumping up so many fucking movies that I can't make any sense out of because you don't say anything, you just type shit on cue cards and you photograph it and post that and pretend it's a movie. No soundtrack, no speech, no personality, just a whinging, whining, moaning, groaning, grizzling, griping, carping, fucking pommy pissant. A pusillanimous pommy pissant. You talk like a pommy, and you tell me that you'd be allowed into Australia because your mother came from Melbourne. Well, let me tell you, honey bunchy kins, you're at the wrong end of a fucking epigenetic bottleneck times 2. Once upon a time, some Euro peons came from Europe around here to Australia, and they copulated and they bred, right? And they produced, among other things, your mother. Right? So your mother was born with 5,000 primary oocytes per ovary, and each one of them had been fucking chunk selected to be the best genes that a Euro peon from the Great British Isles, the very best primary oocytes that a Euro peon could come up with for building a baby designed to live in Australia, right? And your mother was an Australian. So she was at the extreme end of a genetic bottleneck. And if she'd bloody well stayed here and married somebody else who was also at the extreme end of a genetic bottleneck, then maybe you would have been genetically fucking designed and epigenetically modified such that the environment was one that you could fit as a youngster. But shit, no, that wasn't what happened to you, was it? Your mother went from fucking Melbourne back to England. And you got fucking born in England. And her primary oocytes that had all been previously genetically selected to live in Australia, they got fucking fertilised by, I don't know, something that happened to be in England that your mummy thought was nice, appealing. And therefore you got fucking born and sent to school in England, and you never ever fit in. Right? What's blue and doesn't fit? A dead epileptic. Or derived energy in fucking England. You kind of remind me of my highly estranged wife. Her father was a Hungarian, a member of the Viking SS, Fallschirmjäger Brigade, or regiment, whatever the fuck it was. Yeah, he served under Sepp Dietrich. And when Hungary was crushed by the Russians, he fucking deserted when the Leibstandarte were told to take away their honour patches. And he disappeared into fucking Switzerland as a lumberjack, and then he went to Wales as a coal miner, and when he was released from that, that's when he married my mother-in-law, the last unreconstructed Nazi. So my estranged wife was conceived in Burton-on-Trent, and she was happily growing up being bullied and beaten and bashed around the fucking head by all the bloody little English pricks who thought it was her fault that, you know, they had a relative who suffered or died in the Battle of Britain. That was because her mother was a German. She wasn't fucking game to tell anybody that her father had been in the Hungarian Air Force, seconded to the Luftwaffe before he volunteered to the Viking SS, because the Luftwaffe was his cover story. And then when she was 11, right? Now bear in mind, a Hungarian over a German is a pretty good genetic mix to build or construct a Czechoslovakian, right? So we take the best German egg for living in England and the best Hungarian sperm for living in England, and we build themselves their best throw at an English individual, right? And you know what? When they transplant that to Australia when it's 11 years old, it doesn't fucking thrive. Because I have rescue fantasies. I thought it was a clever idea to marry such a thing. But it didn't go well. I feel sorry for you, Derived Energy, because you are epigenetically programmed and genetically selected not to fit into the life force spirit energy anywhere on planet Earth. You've been bottlenecked twice, and you're a fucking extraneous outlier. You're one of the things that an actual genuine scientist writes out of the program because you don't fucking count. And if you want to hang around in Jakarta and try and commit suicide by pig, smoking pot as a Westerner in a Muslim semi-dictatorship, that's your fucking choice. But don't try and tell me or anybody that I'm friends with that it's a clever choice, right? Don't try and tell anybody that what you're doing is clever. What you're doing is following the counsel of despair. A very Benetarded view. A life backwards arse firstist perspective on the universe. Warbles on a lot. To Kirk Neville, Derived Energy. Like I said, up your nose with a rubber hose. The idea of the rubber hose is to put suction on your stomach contents so when you get a bowel obstruction you don't have to vomit shit, because that's what you're doing on YouTube. You are vomiting shit. And you think it's philosophy. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.